Would you work at a company where everybody knew everybody else's salary? I know a lot of people that would. So it's Candace, everybody, and welcome to Ambition, Honey, and Hustle. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about one of the startups I love, Buffer, and we're going to talk about company culture. So stay tuned after the theme song. We'll be right back. So the big question is this: how do we ambitious professionals avoid the slow-moving career, take control of our time, and get paid for two things? Doing what excites us and making an impact bigger than anyone ever thought was possible. That is the question, and this podcast has the answers. My name is Candace Spears, and welcome to Ambition, Honey, and Hustle. Okay, so let's talk about startups I love. Love. So I mentioned before about Buffer because I use it often, even though I haven't been using it as much at the moment. Buffer is the social media scheduling app. So if you need to schedule your Instagram posts, any Facebook, anything, you name it, any social tool, YouTube, LinkedIn, whatever, you name it, you can use Buffer for scheduling. Well, Buffer falls into the categories of companies that I think are absolutely amazing. So let me tell you this story about, I don't know what year that was. The same year when I was in the global product manager role at Brady, when I had just entered that role, the product manager for the software portfolio, I was new to the software space and just learning like the whole how to manage software and deal with customers as it relates to software purchases and software as a service purchases and all this stuff. So one of the things I did is I'm always like, all right, if I'm going to take on something, I have no problem taking on the challenge, but I need to educate myself. So I found this conference called the Business of Software Conference and got my manager to agree to let me go to it and all this good stuff. It was happening in Boston, and there were a number of different startups and founders that were there during this. I think it was about 3 days of just workshops and talks and just a lot of good, super energizing stuff going on. So anyway, one day there was this guy, and his name is, I never say his last name right, Joel Gascoigne. He was there, and he was talking about Buffer. And I just recall sitting in my seat. And once his talk was done, I forever remembered the company name. I forever remembered the company culture. I mean, it was just amazing. He had caught my attention as he was talking about how their company was all about transparency, and so transparent that they started publishing everyone's salaries. Now, if you're thinking like me and everybody else in the audience at that time, it was sort of a big, oh, you did what? How did you do it? What? What did they say? What is this? What did they say? And that had grabbed my attention from then on. Here is a company who had decided that transparency was so key, was so important, that they wanted everybody to understand, one, how they treated people, how they rated people, where people stood. There was no need to hide that type of information. If you were equal, you were fair, all around. So that was the first thing that got me as I'm listening to him. The second thing that got me is he was talking about how they have switched to start paying people to take vacation. Yes, paying people to take vacation because people wouldn't take it. And this you see at a lot of companies traditionally, that people, well, some people do, but oftentimes people won't always take all their vacation and it'll just go unused. But this was so interesting because he said, it was super important that their folks took the time to recharge, and we wanted them to disconnect, but they had a culture where people just loved to be there. So they decided to start paying people. I think it was $1,000 if you actually took the vacation that you were supposed to take. And I think, actually, if I recall back, I don't even think they had a cap on vacation. I think they were unlimited vacations. So here you have a culture where people are excited to be there. They're excited to be engaged. So excited that you have to pay them to leave and take time off. I'm like, okay, wow, that's interesting and innovative. We don't see that a lot. And then the third thing that I love, and so far, at least last time I read, they continue to be rooted in this. It's that culture that Joel and his co-founder, I can't think of the co-founder's name, but they decided to not go that traditional route of building out a headquarters and having all these people co-located in one space. They wanted to continue to maintain this just sort of work from anywhere life for all of their employees, for everyone. So even to this day, at least the last time I checked, there's no headquarters office. Everybody that works for them all works remotely. And I'm trying to see if I've got here some of the info. So they have about 70 employees. This was as of last year, latter part of last year. 70 employees now, and they now have over 75,000 customers, and they're doing about 1.3 million in revenue each month. So I continue to be amazed at just the culture of this company, because it's rare. If you are in a job, or you've worked in a job, especially as a corporate professional, in big time corporate America, you don't see that type of freedom, that type of transparency, that type of culture that is fueled by innovation, is fueled by knowing that it has a workforce that is talented and is willing to put in, whether it's 2:00 in the morning, whether it's 5:00 in the evening, whether it's 12:00 at the day, the time that it takes to move a mission forward. So I found Buffer just incredibly fascinating, and that Buffer goes on one of my startups I love list from the culture aspect. And so I'm telling you today, if you look around and you think about these different companies and startups, and even think about where you are today, 9 times out of 10, for many of you, you may not see these kind of values in your organization today. But for those of you that are pushing farther and are pushing farther in the bigger impact, whether that bigger impact is making your own company, and if it is starting your own company, which I always encourage, you have that opportunity to create a culture for your folks, that culture where they don't want to leave. Like they are so ingrained, they are so in belief of the mission that they go in, and they go in hard to help make the company itself successful. And I'll tell you this, if you're at a place right now where the culture is nowhere near that, or, because in many places it's not, or the culture is in such a way that it makes you feel the complete opposite. By that I mean you don't want to be there. You dread going. You try to use up all of your vacation days whenever possible, and there's nothing wrong with that. But let that be a signal to you that it's time to do something different. If you don't feel, contrary to Buffer, where people feel appreciated by their talents and that's recognized, if you don't feel that, and again, you know that your talent is best used in a different way or for a bigger impact to make, let this be encouragement for you to assess all of that and take some action to make a difference. What's the impact you want to make? Take the action, make it, and go. So, startups I love, Buffer, check them out. Check out their story. It really is inspirational, and I leave this with you. Take action if you want to do something different, or if your culture sucks, make a change. All right, have a great day, have a great evening, whenever you hear this, and I'll talk to you again soon. Listen, the hustle can be tiring. All this ambition, all this moving, fast pace, getting it done. So what do? You surround yourself with the energy and the motivation to keep going. And you know where you find that energy and motivation? Right here on this podcast. So if you haven't already, listen, follow, share, subscribe. I'm on here every day bringing you that energy, and with my special guest, bringing you the motivation that you need to keep pushing further and further into your bigger impact. If we haven't got connected already, let's get connected on Instagram. You can follow me at Candace Spears. I look forward to catching up with you very soon.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.